There are many benefits to classing what may be classed as a civil war into a religious war, i.e. to take a civil war, which is man against man, neighbour against neighbour, and to rebrand it as a religious war, a crusade or a jihad, for example. Many religions are very clear in their doctrines. Do no harm, love your neighbour as yourself, thou shalt not kill, etc. So how do you turn that into being a religious war when the doctrines are very clear to be peaceful? The truth is that religion can be a flag or an identity to rally around. This plus an assumption that God is on your side, and we have a perfect recipe for, unfortunately, a religious war. Christian King Peter took over Seville in 1248. Despite conquering the Moors, he decided to keep their architecture. He even had Quranic texts written in Arabic inscribed around his palace. King Peter also called himself the Caliph as opposed to the king. It seems he had the utmost respect for his conquered enemy. This brings us on to the Renaissance. Now, the Renaissance is a period of European history originally believed to have started in Italy. It marks the abandonment of faith and the adoption of curiosity in its place. This is why it's called the era of enlightenment, stepping away from faith and stepping into curiosity, the enlightenment of logic. We see great scientists, mathematicians, and new fashions emerging during this time. Classical philosophy, art, literature, and astronomy were repopularised. But as we know, culture tends to evolve and it doesn't tend to spring out of nowhere. And as we have explored, there was another empire at the time which had already absorbed astronomy, art, fashion, and the classical Greek philosophies into their customs. And these people, as we know, are called the Moors. The question is, did they provide the ignition for the European Renaissance? Many historians would say that they did, in fact, do this. The foundations of the Renaissance may have been laid in Toledo, Muslim Spain. Toledo was captured in the 11th century, 1085, by Christians in a peaceful takeover. The Christian invaders left the mosques and the libraries untouched, allowing them to learn from the Moors. This is very different to what happened during the majority of the Spanish Reconquista, which is where we see many Arabic books being burned and the knowledge that laid within their pages gone forever. These Spanish Christians integrated what they learned into their societies and their kingdoms. An English adventurer, Dale of MORLEY, wrote of the contrast between Parisian, i.e. Paris, and Arabic scholars. He regarded the Arabic scholars as wise and accomplished in comparison to their European counterparts. He was heavily influenced by their approach, by the Moors' approach to education and to their scholarly work. Dale returned some years later with his acquired knowledge to establish a town in England. That town would have a clear focus on the pursuit of education. That town is what we now know today as Oxford. This provided a new pursuit of reason and logic, an alternate path to faith alone. As previously discussed, at this point in time, faith in God was all that was prized. Curiosity was in many ways a taboo, as it was deemed to be questioning God's work. This curiosity of the world continued throughout the Renaissance. Jewish, Christian, and Muslim explorers gathered in Toledo to explore the libraries and translate the works of their own people. Very quickly, Arabic words started to migrate across languages. For example, today, assassin comes from the word hassassin, which is Arabic. Chemistry comes from alchemy, which comes from alchemia. A collection of weapons, as we know as being an arsenal, comes from the word arsenal, which is Arabic. Alcohol, lemon, and lime are all Arabic words. The process of the set of rules to be followed during calculations is what we know as an algorithm, which also comes from Arabic. Mathematics, which involves letters and other general symbols which are used to represent numbers, which we know as algebra, is also Arabic. Zero comes from the word cipher, which comes from the word sifra, which is also Arabic. the numerical sequence or system from 1 to 9, which allowed more complex calculations in comparison to Roman numerals, is also Arabic in its origin, and it came to Europe through northern Africa. Due to their ease of use, Arabic numerals were quickly adopted around Europe. Salisbury Cathedral, built in England in 1200 AD, features Arabic numerals on its wooden beams. The builders would have used these numerals to coordinate the build of the cathedral. Now, my task put to you. The Moors developed new numerical systems which we use today. What I want you to do, if that's all right, the teacher who's in the room, is split the class into A and B. So you're going to split them down the middle. Now, what I want you to do is half of the class, I want you to set out just a few very simple mathematical calculations, maybe like a 3-step mathematical sequence. And what I want one class to do, or one part of the class to do, is try and solve the equation using Roman numerals, and the other side of the class using the Arabic numerals, which we still use today, 0 to 9. And I want you to assess and come back with some feedback as to which was quicker, why it was quicker, why you think the Arabic numerals are superior. Is it just because you're used to them, or is it because something about them makes it a lot easier to do mathematical calculations? And the other side of the room, if you're using Roman numerals, tell us what you feel slowed you down. Was this just down to because you're not used to them, or is it because there's something about the Roman numerals which makes it generally just more difficult to use when it comes to solving mathematical equations? Give that a go, and obviously, after you're done, then you can start the next part of the presentation, of course, unless it's home time.